Hello everyone. You are returning to Vietnamese Case Files. Over the past few days, Vietnamese social media has been buzzing with the news that the Thanh Hoa Provincial Police dismantled an exceptionally large online fraud and money laundering network in June. What made the case even more shocking was that one of the masterminds behind this network was a very familiar face to the online community, Quang Trung Diamond, a popular TikToker known for portraying himself as a successful diamond dealer, driving luxury supercars, and unboxing high-end designer goods that many people could only dream of. So what exactly was his role in this massive fraud operation? And among the bank balances he flaunted online, how much of it came from the hard-earned money of victims across the country? Stay with Vietnamese Case Files until the end as we unravel the mysteries behind this extraordinary fraud case. Please note that all information in today's video is thoroughly researched and compiled from multiple sources. If there are any errors or details that need correction, feel free to leave a comment below so we can update and amend them. Before diving into the details, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any upcoming cases on Vietnamese Case Files. Thank you for your support. One evening in late 2023 in Dong Thap, Miss N, age 34, rushed to the local police station to report that she had been scammed online. Earlier, she had received an invitation to work as a video viewing collaborator on Telegram to earn money, supposedly from someone claiming to be an employee of Tiki. At first, Miss N completed a few simple tasks and received a symbolic reward of about $2.50, which made her believe the job was legitimate. But soon, the recruitment group demanded that she transfer hundreds of millions of dong as deposits to complete larger orders. Thinking she would earn profits quickly, Ms. N made multiple transfers, totaling the equivalent of about $13,500 to the bank account provided by the scammer. When she could no longer send more money and requested to withdraw her funds, the group immediately removed her from the chat and took all the money. Shocked and furious, the victim decided to report the crime. Investigators were taken aback by her story. Though not entirely surprised, this was far from the first case. Around the same time, multiple women in Long An, Can Tho, Thanh Hoa, and other provinces also reported similar scams. All of them originated from enticing easy job, high income invitations on Facebook. A wave of complaints poured in from across the country, revealing that this was not a small-scale scam, but potentially a massive, well-organized network. At the beginning of 2025, the Criminal Investigation Division of the Thanh Hoa Provincial Police received a consolidated report showing that these online collaborator scams shared striking similarities, with all victim funds funneled into mysterious bank accounts before disappearing rapidly. To obtain a full overview, investigators had to infiltrate fake Facebook fan pages and private Telegram groups. There, they witnessed a bustling fraud factory. Thousands of comments asking about job opportunities, automated replies offering attractive pay, and private messages constantly finalizing contracts with victims. The first impression for investigators was the unusually professional and large-scale operation of this fraud ring. This was not a handful of petty criminals. It appeared to be an entire coordinated system running smoothly behind the scenes. The clearest lead was the bank accounts receiving the funds. Each victim was instructed to transfer money to different account numbers opened at various banks nationwide. Initial findings revealed that most accounts were under unfamiliar names or non-existent companies. This was a clear sign of ghost accounts used for money laundering. Investigators concluded that this was likely a sophisticated laundering network, with stolen funds routed through multiple accounts. At one ATM withdrawal point in Hanoi, security camera footage captured a masked young man withdrawing hundreds of millions of dong, amounting to thousands of dollars, just minutes after victims transferred their money. The high level of sophistication and technological complexity made the case extremely challenging for investigators. There were no physical trails, no clear identities of the perpetrators, and everything was hidden behind screens and digital transaction. Despite facing significant challenges at the beginning, the trust that victims placed in the investigators and the dire circumstances many of them faced became a powerful motivation for the task force to uncover the truth as quickly as possible. Most victims were women from different provinces, stay-at-home mothers, housewives, young women looking for side jobs, and even middle-aged individuals seeking extra income. Some needed money to care for young children, others wanted to earn during off-season farming months, and all were drawn in by advertisements promising easy money just by watching videos at home. At first, everyone believed they had stumbled upon a golden opportunity. They received a small initial payment, only a few dollars, which they didn't realize was merely bait. Gradually, the victims were pulled deeper into the scam. Each task required a higher deposit than the last. Many ended up emptying their savings, borrowing from relatives, or even mortgaging their land use certificates, hoping to complete the so-called final task to recover both capital and profit. Once they were financially drained, the fraudsters revealed their true colors. Each victim became a tragic story of misplaced trust, money gone, marriages strained, and debts piling up. Due to the sensitive and confidential nature of this fraud case, the specific identities of the victims are not disclosed. Only abbreviated names are used. Since the victims voluntarily reported the crime, identifying them was not difficult. The investigation focused on uncovering the mastermind behind this sophisticated operation. Police established a special investigative unit to deploy their elite officers to crack the case. In the early days, the case files were overwhelmed with hundreds of victim statements. Each person only knew the scammer through an online alias such as CEO Xuan Than or Nun Vien Bao Yen. This made tracing the criminals' real identities feel like searching for a needle in a haystack. Investigators had to coordinate across multiple disciplines. Cybersecurity experts traced IP addresses and social media accounts, forensic analysts examined banking transaction data, and criminal investigators reviewed local connections and potential suspects. A major breakthrough emerged when the task force linked several ghost accounts together. They discovered that many accounts receiving money from victims, despite being under different names, ultimately funneled funds into a single account belonging to a mysterious company called Furong Hoang. This lead was immediately expanded. Legal records showed that Phuong Hoang Company was registered in Cambodia and owned by a Vietnamese national. That individual was Nguyen Thanh Tung, 36 years old. So who was Tung? Police records showed that he was born into a poor rural family in Quang Chinh, Commune, Thanh Hoa Province, not a real businessman, and exhibited numerous suspicious financial activities. Tung had traveled abroad many times, frequently crossing the Vietnam-Cambodia border, raising suspicions that he was involved in underground networks. Over time, the portrait of the mastermind became clear. He was a discreet boss who established a company in Cambodia to recruit dozens of young Vietnamese men to execute a large-scale fraud scheme. Once Tung was identified as the central link, the investigation moved to tracking his accomplices and the movement of money. By following the flow of funds, authorities gradually uncovered the identities of Vietnamese individuals operating behind these ghost accounts. Among them was an account that had received the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars from victims and then used the money to purchase large quantities of gemstones and gold from a jewelry store. The owner of that jewelry store was none other than a young online influencer, widely known as Quang Trung Diamond. He was a man born in 1993, previously featured in the media for flaunting diamond trading ventures and luxury cars. He claimed to be a natural diamond appraisal expert with 10 years of experience in the jewelry industry and the owner of Quang Trung Jewelry, a brand supposedly catering to high-end clients. In reality, it was all an illusion. Nguyen Quang Trung, 32 years old, residing in Ho An Kim District, Hanoi, was a key money laundering link in Tung's criminal network. Investigators collected evidence from Quang Trung's Facebook page and his jewelry business activities. They secretly cross-checked large sums flowing into Quang Trung's company accounts with transactions from the ghost accounts. The matches were chillingly precise. Quang Trung Diamond had received fraud money, legitimized it by reporting diamond sales revenue, and then continued laundering the funds. Now, the identities of the mastermind and accomplices were gradually revealed, but authorities still needed additional evidence before launching an arrest operation. The special operation, designated under a classified code, mobilized the maximum police force and applied a full range of investigative techniques. The task force was divided into multiple units. One unit focused on collecting electronic evidence such as transaction logs, messages, and emails. Another secretly monitored suspects within Vietnam, while a separate unit coordinated with Cambodian authorities to gather intelligence from across the border. Cyber investigators traced each Facebook account used to create the fake recruitment fan pages. They discovered that all these fan pages were managed through accounts registered with Cambodian phone numbers. Using advanced technical methods, the investigative team identified the IP addresses of several page administrators, with coordinates pointing directly to Phnom Penh, Cambodia. However, since suspects could not yet be arrested outside the country, police concentrated on gathering additional evidence. They captured every recruitment post and archived entire chat logs between scammers and victims as proof of fraudulent intent and property appropriation. At the same time, financial evidence was examined in depth. Hundreds of bank statements were sent in from various banks nationwide. Analysts identified a recurring pattern. Victims' money was usually withdrawn within hours or transferred through multiple intermediary accounts to erase the trail. Notably, some intermediary accounts received funds and immediately used the money to purchase high-value goods. Transactions involving diamonds, precious metals, and luxury cars raised suspicions of money laundering. This was when a specialized investigative method was employed. The technique involved creating a criminal profile based on spending behavior. Investigators theorized that the mastermind would likely indulge in lavish lifestyles funded by fraud, such as luxury cars or designer goods. These indicators aligned perfectly with the behavior of Quang Trung Diamond. The fact that this young man suddenly became wealthy in just a few short years without any clear legitimate capital source raised strong suspicion within the task force. Meanwhile, witness testimony, including statements from former members of the scam network who later defected, played a crucial role. Through interrogation, police learned critical details about how the group impersonated celebrities and online influencers to run recruitment ads. One anonymous witness, who had once been lured to Cambodia to work, stated that the company there operated an actual call center floor staffed with dozens of Vietnamese employees pretending to be recruiters, calling and messaging people in Vietnam around the clock to trap them. The script followed a consistent pattern. Victims were first given a small commission, then pressured with promises of bigger tasks, bigger profits, until they deposited increasingly large sums of money, only to have everything stolen. These testimonies matched victims' accounts, reinforcing the established crime pattern. Police then extracted telecommunications data and pinpointed a phone number belonging to the mastermind, which consistently emitted signals near the Naga World Casino in Phnom Penh. This confirmed that Nguyen Thanh Tung was hiding in Cambodia and directing the operation remotely. From here, Vietnamese authorities quietly contacted Cambodia through Interpol and bilateral cooperation channels. Confidential meetings were held between Vietnamese police and Cambodian law enforcement to plan a coordinated arrest operation. Suspect elimination progressed smoothly thanks to the overwhelming volume of evidence. The initial suspect list contained dozens of names, but it gradually narrowed to just over 10 key individuals. Among them were Nguyen Thanh Tung, the mastermind, and Quang Trung Diamond, the primary money launderer. Supporting them were several individuals responsible for online fraud operations and a number of operatives tasked with opening bank accounts and withdrawing funds. These operatives included Hue Tun Trong, Lê Tun Sang, Nguyen Tien Dung, Ngo Van Thăng, and Nguyen Van Hoa. Each had a clear, defined role within the system. With no doubt remaining, the task force determined that the time had come to unmask the final perpetrators and expose the entire criminal network. By June 2025, through intelligence sources, police learned that Nguyen Quang Trung would be hosting a launch event for a new diamond collection at his store in Hanoi, with expectations that Tung himself would return from Cambodia to attend. This was the golden opportunity to capture the entire ring at once. The arrest plan was immediately prepared in detail, involving multiple investigative teams across several provinces. The operation required perfect synchronization and absolute surprise. At the same moment, teams would simultaneously arrest both Tung and Trung in Hanoi, while other teams would apprehend additional suspects in Ho Chi Minh City, Can Tho, Quang Ninh, and Thanh Hoa, the locations where they resided. Every step was meticulously coordinated, from the discreet movements of officers to the strategic placement of units near the suspects. on June 26, 2025, in Hanoi. While Quang Trung Diamond was entertaining several VIP guests inside his luxurious showroom, undercover officers burst in unexpectedly. Stunned and unable to react, Trung was immediately handcuffed. The once confident young man who flaunted his wealth online turned pale as police read the arrest warrant for the charge of money laundering. At the same time, in a rented villa on the outskirts of Hanoi, Nguyen Thanh Tung was subdued by a special operations team. He attempted to flee, but the perimeter was too tight. He was quickly overpowered. Within less than an hour, the remaining 5 members of the fraud ring were also captured. All were arrested for fraud and property appropriation, while Nguyen Van Hoa faced an additional charge of money laundering. The takedown was executed so swiftly and cleanly that nearby residents remained unaware until they saw police escorting the suspects into specialized vehicles. The task force had completed their mission with exceptional precision. The notorious fraud ring was officially dismantled. Immediately after the arrests, authorities conducted searches at the suspects' residences and workplaces. What they discovered shocked the public. At the home of Quang Trung Diamond, police seized a warehouse of luxury goods, including dozens of diamonds, various gemstones, multiple high-value savings books, and 3 supercars: a Lamborghini Urus, a Mercedes S450, and a Porsche Panamera. Elsewhere, police confiscated hundreds of ATM cards under numerous names, dozens of fake ID cards, and computers and phones containing detailed data on thousands of victims nationwide. From the testimonies and clues collected, authorities successfully reconstructed the entire criminal operation. In late 2022, Nguyen Thanh Tung conceived the idea of creating a large-scale fraud ring. At that time, through underground online forums, he learned about the trending tactic of recruiting online collaborators being used abroad. Realizing that many people in Vietnam were easily deceived, Tung became determined to carry it out. He chose Cambodia as the base of operations, believing that running scams across borders would make detection more difficult. Moreover, Cambodia at the time had several safe zones for cyber criminals, including privately rented buildings with lax oversight. In early 2023, Tung traveled to Phnom Penh, using his savings and borrowed funds to establish a front company called Phurong Hoang. He recruited around 30 Vietnamese people, mostly unemployed youths or those eager to make fast money, luring them to Cambodia with promises of high-paying office jobs. In reality, they were trained to become professional scammers. They were given scripts, phones, computers, lists of ghost bank accounts, and databases containing thousands of potential victims. During the preparation phase, Tung instructed his team to create numerous fake Facebook fan pages impersonating celebrities. They impersonated television hosts, trending singers, and even cloned fan pages of major brands. Their goal was to run large-scale ads to attract as many interested users as possible. The advertisements typically stated, hiring online collaborators earn between $200 and $400 per week. Only need to watch videos or review products. This sweet-sounding offer spread across Facebook, reaching tens of thousands of people. With only a smartphone, a laptop, and fake social media accounts, a crime was quietly taking shape. From a locked room in Phnom Penh, Tung's employees acted as recruiters, calling victims in Vietnam every day. They specifically targeted middle-aged women and stay-at-home mothers, those with limited tech knowledge and an urgent need of income. One employee would call a victim, claim to be a representative of an e-commerce company, and present an attractive offer. At first, the scammers assigned simple tasks, such as liking a video and writing positive comments about a product. They promised a payment of around $2 to $4 per task. Once the victim completed it, they transferred the money immediately, building trust. When the prey was hooked, the scammers escalated the tasks, requiring victims to watch longer advertisement videos but demanding deposits of around $100 to $200 to prevent cheating. After victims deposited the money, the scammers still returned both principal and profit, even adding small bonuses of $10 to $20, making the victims believe the system was legitimate and easy to profit from. By the third or fourth task, the required deposits skyrocketed to several thousand or even tens of thousands of dollars. They used every psychological tactic possible, telling victims this was the final opportunity, promising that depositing $5,000 would return $7,500. If the victim hesitated, another member of the fraud ring, pretending to be a fellow collaborator, would jump into the chat, boasting that they had deposited large amounts and successfully withdrawn tens of thousands of dollars, pushing the victim to act quickly before the chance disappeared. In the end, very few people could resist the temptation. They borrowed money from everywhere or pawned assets, transferring large sums to the scammers in the belief they would change their lives overnight. The moment Tung's group executed, the final act of deception was always sudden. As soon as the victim transferred the money, the recruiter vanished instantly. Terrified, the victim tried calling and messaging, only to find they had been completely blocked. Some cases were even more brazen. When a victim protested in the Telegram group, accusing them of fraud, the scammers immediately turned against them. Using the victim's real photos and personal information, they smeared them on social media, terrifying them into silence. After each successful fraud, Tung's employees in Cambodia celebrated by reporting to their boss and receiving a commission of several percent. Meanwhile, the victim's money flowed through a complex laundering route that Tung had designed. From bank accounts in Vietnam, the funds were transferred through 3 to 4 layers of intermediary accounts belonging to individuals like Hoa, Trong, and Thung. Each layer withdrew part of the cash to prevent the entire amount from being frozen if suspicion arose. Eventually, most of the money was funneled into the account of Tung's Phuong Hoang company or into the jewelry company account of Quang Trung Diamond. The process of concealing and erasing traces was carried out flawlessly by Tung and Trung for a long time. In Cambodia, Tung converted cash into cryptocurrency and gold, then smuggled these assets back into Vietnam, disguised as merchandise. As a result, a simple review of bank transactions would reveal nothing suspicious, because the money had already been transformed into legitimate goods. As for Quang Trung Diamond, he meticulously prepared for his role as a businessman, opening a lavish showroom in Hoan Kiem District, Hanoi, hiring sales staff, and heavily advertising his diamond collections online. When illicit money flowed in, Trung cleverly disguised it as diamond sales revenue. For example, a diamond worth only about $8,000 in reality would be recorded as a sale of $80,000 to a VIP customer. He could then issue invoices, pay taxes, and convert black money into clean income. If inspected, his bookkeeping appeared flawless. Through this laundering process, both Tung and Trung shared the profits. Tung kept the majority of the money for himself and funneled it back to Cambodia to fund the operation and enrich his own lifestyle. Trung received a substantial share as well. This was the true source of the Lamborghinis and Rolex watches he flaunted online. It could be said that every sparkling diamond inside the display cases of Quang Trung Diamond was soaked in the tears of victims who never knew where their money had gone. Notably, during the commission of the crimes, the psychological profiles of the perpetrators showed clear differences. Nguyen Thanh Tung was cold and calculating. He treated the fraud scheme like a business project, constantly pressuring his employees to meet monthly targets for the amount of money stolen from victims. Tung even offered large bonuses to teams that scammed the most people and imposed heavy punishments on anyone who allowed victims to grow suspicious. Toward the victims, he showed utter disdain, calling them fish waiting to be caught, with no fear of consequences or karma. In contrast, Nguyen Quang Trung presented a different face. Despite his flashy public persona, deep down Trung lived in constant fear of being exposed. Evidence of this was found in his phone, where police discovered numerous messages instructing his subordinates to delete all traces and remain vigilant because cyber police are very skilled now. His fears ultimately became reality. After the successful arrests, authorities officially initiated criminal proceedings and indicted 7 key members of the network for corresponding offenses. Specifically, Nguyen Thanh Tung was charged with fraud and property appropriation under Article 174 of the Penal Code and money laundering under Article 324. Accomplices Huan Tun Trong, Lê Tun Sang, Nguyen Tien Dung, and Ngu Van Thung were charged with fraud and property appropriation, while Nguyen Van Hoa and Nguyen Quang Trung were charged with money laundering. The case remained under expanded investigation and had not yet proceeded to trial. However, given the scale and severity of the crime, legal experts predicted that the defendants would face extremely harsh sentences. Under Vietnamese law, fraud involving assets valued at more than $20,000 carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. Large-scale money laundering can result in prison terms of up to 20 years. Therefore, it is highly likely that Nguyen Thanh Tum, the mastermind, will receive a life sentence for orchestrating a fraudulent scheme that stole the equivalent of millions of dollars. Other accomplices, depending on their level of involvement, may also face lengthy prison terms. The public is closely following every step of the legal process, hoping justice will adequately punish the perpetrators and recover as much stolen money as possible for the victims. What do you think about this massive fraud case? Was it driven by the greed of the criminals or by the victims' misplaced trust? What sentence do you believe is appropriate for those behind this scheme? Let Vietnamese Case Files know in the comments below. And if you found today's content compelling, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to Vietnamese Case Files to follow more extraordinary true crime stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.